Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Fox98 here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 debate for you guys today here on the channel. Today we're going to be going over the Styrian Grand Prix qualifying session, which we did just have a couple of hours ago, and I'm going to get the stuff up on my phone so I can remember all of the lap times and stuff, because I actually can't remember it all. But last week I never actually did a video discussing qualifying during the F1 debate, which is obviously a new series where I get to talk about real life F1 and bring that portion of Formula 1 into my channel. Obviously, I'm not just about the F1 game, it's all about the F1 in real life as well, if that makes sense. So, starting things off then, I just want to say a massive thank you to the FIA and also the Rain Gods for actually allowing us to have the qualifying session. They could have easily hid behind a brick wall and said, no, we're not doing this, it's too wet, blah, 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 all this crap, basically, and saying that, you know, we've got to postpone it for potentially a Sunday morning qualifying, or just a normal, you know, or taking FP2 times. And of course, a lot of people were saying, you know, it's going to be FP2 times. I didn't believe it. I actually thought it'd be a Sunday morning quali, but it was really, really nice to see a full wet qualifying session. Firstly, because it just showed that, you know, we've got 20 of the greatest drivers in the world right now, as they say, going at it. And if you can't go out on the wet, what's the point? That's where you're going to see raw talent. And I think this qualifying session genuinely proved that. We saw a qualifying session which showcased raw talent within the pecking order itself. So I am going to be nodding my head back and forth quite a bit, as I'm going to be looking on my phone at the results itself and just going through some key elements, of course. So if you haven't seen qualifying, obviously, please don't watch this video until you have seen it, because obviously I'll be spoiling it as I'm going to be discussing qualifying in general. So we'll start things off then with the grid itself. So Lewis Hamilton takes his 89th career pole position for himself, ahead of Max Verstappen, and then Carlos Sainz getting P3 for McLaren ahead of Valtteri Bottas and Esteban Ocon, with Lando Norris coming in P6. He'll start P9 after his three-place grid penalty after he overtook under yellow flags in FP1. And I think they were saying that he overtook just one car in F1. He actually overtook two under yellow flags. But yeah, a lot of people really debating that one, saying that it was kind of dull and stupid and it's only practice. At the end of the day, safety is safety, and the rules specifically state you cannot overtake under yellow flags. Just slow down and just go into the pit lane. That's as simple as that. But Norris went over overtook the cars, and even though it was a slow speed, you know, overtaking, it is still technically dangerous. If we go back to who was it? Was it Stroll and Vettel in Malaysia 2017 when they were on a cool-down lap and they just crashed into each other? You never know what can happen. If they ended up crashing into each other and you know, he lost the back end and spun around, he could easily have hit someone. You have to think of those scenarios. So it's a fair play. It's a fair penalty. Alex Albon then will be in P7, or will start in P6, but obviously qualified in P7 ahead of Gasly, Ricciardo, and then Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari. Then we had Leclerc, Russell, Stroll, Kvyat, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Perez, Latifi, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Romain Grosjean, rounding off the 20 drivers. Bit of breaking news as well as I'm making this video. Of course, you probably would have seen it. If you haven't, it's been confirmed that Charles Leclerc will take a three-place grid penalty for impeding Danny Kvyat on his flying lap in qualifying. So that means Leclerc will not start in P11. He will start in P14. And George Russell will now start in P11. So kudos to George Russell on that one. So let's have a look then into qualifying itself. So we'll start things off with Q1. Q1 was very, very interesting. What I loved about the qualifying session, and you guys can let me know on this, is the amount of running that they got to do. They were just going round and around and round and around and just carrying on, because they filled their cards up for the whole session, and it was great to see. It was very, very fascinating to see all of the different drivers just pummeling around and constantly seeing those lap times changing. You know, all of a sudden you'd see Hamilton go fastest, all of a sudden Norris would beat it, then Ocon would beat it, a Gasly, but you know, it just kept changing and fluctuating, and it was really, really cool in my eyes just to see that constantly changing in there. Looking towards the set of the grid then, so Sergio Perez was the biggest casualty from Q1. He really didn't get any proper good laps together. He said that he was on a good lap and could have got out of Q1 if it wasn't for the traffic and also the red flag. So he blames that for his problems. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing you've got to say really is I understand, obviously, that's obviously an issue and it cost him potentially a chance to get into Q2. But if you can't make your laps count prior to that, just that one lap like that, you can have a red flag or something like that. What you want to do is just be improving your lap time. Even if you're safe in Q2, you want to be making sure you've got that clean lap already in the bag, and then that you're just trying to improve on your clean laps. Unfortunately, when you don't have a very good set of lap times on the board, you're going to get knocked out, I'm afraid. Nicholas Latifi also said as well that he thinks he could have got into Q2 had it not been for the yellow flag / red flag, and also a lot of traffic as well. He was very disappointed with qualifying himself, which I thought was quite surprising, but yeah, I was quite interested to see that he says that he could have got through into Q2. I believe Kevin Magnussen made it into Q2. So he believes he could have potentially beaten him, which meant Kvyat wouldn't have made it through either. Unless, actually no, because I'm looking at the Q1 lap times and they're all slightly different and fluctuated. Nevertheless, that's kind of it really. Romain Grosjean had an off at turn 4. And then just didn't come out again. So I don't know what happened. Maybe he had some sort of problem. I could be wrong. I could be very, very wrong. But I very much highly doubt that an issue of going into the gravel at turn 4 would have meant that he could no longer qualify. I don't personally think that. Like I said, I could be completely wrong. Yeah, unfortunately, not a good day for the Haas driver, and he started at the back of the grid. But unfortunately, the Haas car is unfortunately a back marker at the moment, so there's not much we can take from that. Moving then on into Q2 itself then, and Q2 is where the shocks came about because we lost a Ferrari driver for the second race in a row, but this time around it was Charles Leclerc that came out unfortunate, and Sebastian Vettel just scraped through by 8/100ths of a second. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Ferrari. Even with this upgrades that they're bringing to their car, they still don't look quick. They really don't. In FP2, they weren't exactly on the bubble. Race pace as well, they weren't on the bubble in FP2. And in qualifying, I mean, Seb was the... what was their... I'm going to go through on these lap times now. I'm going to find out what was their best laps that they did. So, Vettel's best lap in qualifying was a 1 minute 19.545 because, of course, we saw that the rain increased during the time. So, their optimal lap time that he set was 1:19.525. To put this into perspective, Q3 was a lot wetter. We saw that, and all the lap times decreased because Hamilton and Verstappen were both in the 1 minute 17s on their Q2 laps. In Q3, Lewis Hamilton set a 1:19.2. To put that into perspective, he was still 0.3 of a second quicker than Vettel's best lap in even worse conditions. That kind of says it all. I mean, Vettel 1:19.545 compared to Lewis Hamilton on a 1:17.825. Nearly 2 seconds is the difference between Ferrari and Mercedes. And that was the same in the dry, and it's the same now in the wet. So, yeah, it's puzzling to see Ferrari so far behind. It's clear that the thing that's quite clear to us is they have not built a good car. It's as simple as that. Of course, we can go into all about this debate about whether the Ferrari engine was legal or not, etc. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think it was. But, you can say X, Y, Z and whatnot, because everybody's opinion is valid because we don't actually know the answer. They won't tell us. Wonder why. But yeah, obviously, ever since the engine debate really kicked into gear at the US Grand Prix, Ferrari have not secured a pole position or have secured a race win since. Before that US Grand Prix, they'd secured 4 pole positions back-to-back and won 3 of the 4 Grand Prix. It's just a bit weird, I don't know. It's not all down to straight line speed though, of course. That car's chassis is also not working. The car's just too draggy in a straight line. They said they were losing about 7/8 of a second to Mercedes, which is just absolutely dreadful. And it's also the other Ferrari power team struggling as well, with Haas and Alfa Romeo. Of course, obviously, a lot of their performance would have come down to the Ferrari power unit, so they would have lost the same 7 or 8 of a second because of the power unit deficit. But of course, there's other things that we need to think about in all of that as well. And yeah, didn't work out for them. And of course, Charles Leclerc starts in P11, but he's going to finish starting P14 now, thanks to his 3-place grid penalty. Big shout out as well to George Russell. He managed to get his Williams out of Q1 and get it into Q2, and he's going to start P11 now with Charles' penalty. And he's going to be on the, I think he'd be on the same row as... Oh no, I thought he'd be on the same row as Leclerc, but he won't. So yeah, really, really great qualifying set from him. Of course, unfortunately in the race, he's probably going to finish near last, because that's the performance of the Williams, but it's their best qualifying since Sergei Sorokin at the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2018, where Sorokin qualified P15, I believe it was. So yeah, big shout out to George Russell. I was really impressed with that. I was really impressed with a lot of drivers, actually, with that one. But yeah, in Q2 then, so it was looking like a straight fight between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen with a 117.825 and a 117.938 from Verstappen. And then we move into Q3. The rain got worse, and the track conditions were very, very tricky. And it was Lewis Hamilton that came out on tops, beating the opposition by a whopping 1.2 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. Granted, obviously, Max Verstappen was on a hot lap himself, but he obviously spun the car. He got onto the curb. He said he got a little bit fluctuated by Sebastian, but Seb wasn't really in the way. He was far enough as he was going towards the pits. But I mean, when you're going through the corner and your visibility is quite poor, when you've got another car that's going into the pits as well, you sort of got to think about him, and there's a bit of visibility in there as well. So you can understand where he's coming from. And of course, he spun the car around as well. Looking at the direct comparison between the two lap times, I believe Hamilton was already 0.7 of a second up by the time they got to where Verstappen spun. So it wouldn't have made a difference. It would have been a little bit closer. That's what Verstappen said. He said the gap between them two would have been a little bit closer. But of course, Lewis Hamilton would have got pole anyway, is what he's actually said on that one. But first of all, shout out to Pierre Gasly. First man I want to give some praise to in the AlphaTauri, going in P8. He will start in P7, thanks to Norris's grid penalty. Great qualifying session from him. Lots of times when I was literally going like, ooh, or, you know, applauding him for some great lap times in there. Really, really impressed with him. And I thought he had a great qualifying session. Alexander Albon, weird one. Struggled a lot in this qualifying session. Definitely improved in Q3 though. He was averaging around 1 to 1.5 seconds a lap slower than his teammate Verstappen. But in Q3, that ended up being a half a second deficit. It's still quite a bit, but Alex definitely wasn't happy with the car compared to Verstappen. Although Max even said at the end of Q3, as the track was even wetter, that's when he said the Red Bull was even worse. He said that obviously in Q2, he felt like he could have challenged a bit more. He could lean on the car. In Q3, he said he couldn't really do that. So it's kind of understandable on that front for that. Lando Norris, shout out to Lando Norris. I mean, he got P6, he'll start P9, but it's still a great qualifying session for him. Really, really impressive. But Esteban Ocon gave me probably the most praise, behind obviously Carlos Sainz, we'll get to in a minute, but big plaudits for Ocon. And this is the Ocon that we all knew beforehand, obviously. Unfortunately, Ocon has been a man that's been overshadowed a little bit. Obviously, you know, he's coming into a brand new team with a very experienced teammate, Daniel Ricciardo. He didn't do brilliantly in qualifying against him. And then in the race last week, he was a little bit shoddy, but he came through and he got points. And this week now, he manages to get himself onto 5th place on the grid. I'm trying to have a look at how much quicker he was than Ricciardo. So he was 0.3 of a second clear of Daniel Ricciardo in the wet as well, which is extremely impressive. So yeah, massive praise to Esteban Ocon. And I was really, really impressed with him. And like I said, he's got a lot of stick, an unnecessary stick, I actually think, from the crowd. And I honestly think it's because of the Brazilian Grand Prix. I think that's really damaged him. And not necessarily in terms of his performances, but just his overall popularity. And I think it's really unfair, you know, to diminish his popularity based on one incident. But unfortunately, F1 fans are like that. You know, it's quite simple. I mean, I wear a Mercedes hat and then all of a sudden I get bamboozled with hatred about me supporting Mercedes, but who cares? You know, I've always said it, the F1 fans are probably the most toxic fans in sport, and I probably I'm going to stick with that, definitely. Valtteri Bottas, P4, weird one for him. He was not on the pace in the wet, and he'll be looking at that and thinking, what the hell just happened? To be 1.5 seconds off your teammate is biblical. That is really, really poor from him. There was no mistakes really on his laps. He just didn't have the pace. What shocked me as well is the fact that he literally lost out to Carlos Sainz, which I was going to say, freaking hats off to you, mate. P3, 1.2 seconds off of Hamilton's time, a tenth of a second behind Max Verstappen. It's a cracking lap and a qualifying session from Sainz. And it just goes to show that McLaren are seriously on the up now. And I bet Sainz is starting to rue the fact that he's signed for Ferrari because they're just going backwards, whereas McLaren keep going forwards. And I can't wait to see McLaren next season. They've proven now that they've got a very, very good chassis. Partner that with the Mercedes power unit that they're getting next year, they are a force to be reckoned with. And I'm really looking forward to them. Of course, we saw Verstappen in P2. The qualifying session was literally a fight between Verstappen and Hamilton. But in the end, Hamilton did another one of his champions lap and secured his 89th career pole position and dominated the field. I believe he was fastest in Q1, 2, and 3. I'm looking at my leaderboard, and that is a yes, he was. So he dominated all qualifying sessions. Of course, the final part of qualifying, he really stood out among the rest, and he starts on pole position. What's going to be interesting for the race is tyre strategy. Of course, we know that every single driver on the grid, as it was a wet qualifying, are going to be able to start on whatever tyre compound that they wish to start on, whether that's soft, medium, or hard. So we get to see what tyre strategy they go for. The questions are going to be, what can Ferrari do from really bad positions of P10 and 14? How well can Sainz and Norris do? Of course, being in the dry, you'd expect them to perform better. Can Albon pick his pace back up in the dry? Will Bottas be able to mount a challenge towards the top two? Can Verstappen hound Lewis Hamilton and potentially take the win? Or could Lewis Hamilton finally get one of those weekends? I don't know why I'm saying finally, because he had a dominant weekend in Abu Dhabi 2019, and then he had a really bad weekend last week, and so yeah, I don't know what I'm saying about that, or can Lewis Hamilton have one of those Hamilton type weekends where he just dominates and he takes the lead, controls the race? And I think if Hamilton can stay in front by the end of lap 1, depending on obviously the race, there's so many different scenarios that can happen. If it's a slightly more straightforward race than last time out, then I think Lewis Hamilton's got it in the bag. I think his race pace was much, much better than Bottas's last weekend, but Bottas held his nerve, and obviously with the safety car coming out, it really put paid to Hamilton's strategy of going out longer and then pitting for medium compound tyres, which they could do. But there we go, guys. That is going to be it for qualifying. Pretty much just debriefing it all and giving my thoughts and opinions. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the qualifying session. Also, for these F1 debate videos, do you prefer to just see me talk about the race, or are you cool with me talking about qualifying like I am as well? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I will have a look at your feedback. But if you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well, as we try and make our way towards 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I know I keep saying that, but I'm going to keep saying it until it happens, because that's persistence. Yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow, where I'll obviously have a My Team career mode video ready for you guys. Regarding the F1 debate, that is not going to happen tomorrow, because there's also having some familia over, e.g. family. We've got family coming over tomorrow as well. Hashtag social distancing, kiss my backside. I'm joking. Yeah, we got some family coming over tomorrow, so yeah, I'm not going to be recording the F1 debate tomorrow, so it'll be released on Monday, which is kind of cool because it means that I can then grab the highlights from the Austrian Grand Prix and I can go ahead and basically break down any incidents that do happen. But of course, so far, this 2020 championship is proving to be amazing so far. We've had a fantastic Austrian Grand Prix race last weekend. We've had one of the best qualifying sessions I can remember in a long time. So it's time to find out what happened to the race. What are your predictions for tomorrow? I'll put mine out there before I outro this. I'm going to say it'll be Hamilton that will win ahead of Verstappen, and then Valtteri Bottas will claim P3. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Take care all. Peace.